Welcome to another episode of Electric City Television's Roundtable Discussions. I'm your host, Travis Prince, and today my guest is Nala Messiah. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good.
So it's been a long time coming. I remember
Yes.
I asked you a little while ago to do an interview with me, and you're finally here.
Yes, finally after I don't know how many years, like 2-ish.
Yeah. So the first thing I want you to do is tell the viewing audience a little bit about yourself. Where did you go to school? Where did you grow up at? And some things like that.
Well, like you said, my name is Nala Messiah. I am now 18 years old. I've been homeschooled and cyberschooled all my life, so that was actually a part of why I started doing art, is because I had the time to, because I was always home for all of my life. So I am homeschooled. I'm graduating this year. So,
Congratulations.
Thank you. So that's basically my school life. Can't really say any more about that. But hopefully in the future I'll be able to go to art schools, because I want to further my career in that, between getting licensed, working with other people, and just going out in the world and just showing people the things that I love the most.
Nice. So you're originally from Scranton?
Yes, I was born and raised in Scranton, but both of my parents are from New York, so we're like back and forth between there. But I just tell people I'm from Scranton.
Yeah. So you've been homeschooled your entire life?
Yes. So in the beginning portion, my mom was the one who actually taught us. And then I believe in 6th grade, I was cyber school. So not necessarily like homeschooled all my life, but I did school at home.
Yeah.
So
How do you think that had an impact on your personality, like your peer group, not actually going to public schools with a lot of other kids? Do you think that's an advantage or a disadvantage?
more so, like, I'm in the middle when it comes to that, because I have no problem keeping to myself. I'll lock myself in my room, I'll draw and stuff, and that's something that brings joy to me. But then again, it's kind of a disadvantage, because when it comes to a time where I have to engage with people, it's not really my strong suit. So I've been getting better at that when it comes to like meeting new people, getting out the house. But being homeschooled really made me more of an introvert than anything. So keeping to myself, not really talking to people. The only people I would really talk to was either my peers from school, but that's mainly like cyber. So not necessarily meeting them face to face. So I only started like talking to people recently, in like the past 3 years. So I'm starting to get better at that.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think artists in general are introverts, because we see the world and we really try to like dissect it and analyze it in our heads ourselves and see how can we like reproduce the things that we see, and we think a lot. And,
Yeah.
And so being alone with our thoughts don't really bother artists for the most part, because that's where a lot of our creativity comes from.
Right.
And so, yeah, not being a social butterfly doesn't necessarily mean it's a hindrance on you,
Right.
which is pretty cool. So cyber school, I like that. How did you get into art? So you were homeschooled. Your mother was your first teacher. Where did you come across like your passion or love for art?
My father, hands down. He is creative in so many aspects, whether it's drawing, coming out with like a certain like clothing line to put in the store because he owns a business. I've been surrounded by art all of my life, whether it was the art of dancing, because the majority of my siblings dance, whether it's traditional art like drawing with pencils, or just art in general. My whole family is surrounding that. So as soon as I learned how to pick up a pencil, I was drawing.
Yeah.
So it was a passion that started off in a young age. Like you said earlier, it's great to like learn a passion while you're young. So I was able to do that because I was just surrounded by people who was just involved with art like 24/7.
Yeah. So that's definitely a benefit, coming from like such an eclectic mix of artistic styles right in your family group. Like you say, dancing. Your father used to make music too as well,
Yeah,
right?
he actually still does. It's not really like a main thing now, but to the side, he'll still have his music equipment. He'll create music, and that's another thing. Music is such a big part. We listen we don't like restricting stuff in our household. So it's country, R&B, hip hop, music in different languages. We don't really like, it's not tabooed in our household. Like we're free to listen to whatever we want. So that's another creative aspect about our household.
Wow, that sounds pretty cool. So, with your art, you gravitate more towards the visual arts than other things, such as dance and things
Yeah.
like that. So, how did you figure out where you want to put your focus at?
Trial and error, because when I was younger, I was put in like different classes. So karate is a form of art because it's the body of your movement, like the flow of your movement, depending on how straight your leg is or how you bend your arm. So that was something that I loved. I came second place in a tournament.
Wow.
So that was something, but then the dojo closed down, so I was really upset about that. But karate was one thing. I was in dance for a little while. So I think the best thing to figure out what you're into is to try it yourself and then see what areas you're best in. So between dance, karate, I did singing for a little while. It's more of a hobby than anything. And then art was just one thing that I was like, I can't stop, like no matter what. I think my brother would be concerned because he would knock on my door and be like, it's time to eat, come and eat, because I'll lose track of time and I would just draw for like, I think the longest I drew was like 20 hours straight.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I started drinking coffee at a young age, so that didn't help whatsoever. So yeah, that's how I figured out that I just wanted to do art in like the more like traditional standpoint than like to do dance and music and stuff. Even though I'll gladly start doing that stuff, but I'll put more of my attention to that form of art than anything.
Yeah. Well, it's good to have a healthy respect for all arts and to understand that life in general is art. Like you say, practicing karate and just the movement of your body can be depicted as an art form. Dance and singing as well. So what was some of your first influences in art that artists are different things that you looked at that said, this is cool, I want to try something like this?
So, of course, like I said, my father, he was the main artist of the household, so I was following behind him and I was learning most of my techniques from him. And that was also another way to get close to him because he usually worked he got a lot better now, but he usually worked all the time. So the only time I would really be able to have a connection with him is he would sit down and teach me like the different shades of a pencil, like HB to like 8H, teaching me like different like cross hatching, like stuff like that. But then media also had a big influence as well because, especially anime actually, because anime was like the cartoon for me when I was younger.
What is anime?
Anime is Japanese animation.
Okay.
So just animation from Japan, but then it has like a certain like distinct look to it. But all artists has a different like distinct look to their art. So it's just like a category of like Japanese animation. So I grew up watching that, Dragon Ball Z. Afro Samurai was my favorite out of all of them.
Samuel L. Jackson.
Yes, I love Afro Samurai.
That ain't even natural.
Yeah, I love it. So when I started looking at that, and I'm like, all right, I love it. I love seeing artists turning something into life through animation. And even though animation is not my forte, I love seeing people turning art into something completely different. And so that's like, I want to do that. Like, I want to start doing that. And that's how it just went from there.
So anime has had a big influence on your art style in particular.
Yes, anime, other shows, it's like a lot of other things contributed to like how my art came today, but anime was mainly the most important thing.
Yeah.
But there's like anime, there's shows like Martin, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, like shows like that also contributed to like certain aspects of my art. So like for example, when I was younger, I used to draw. Like my dad used to like comment at this, like everybody has their own like art style, but I used to draw like huge noses, like huge noses. And my dad was like, that's good, but I don't think a nose is supposed to be bigger than like the ear.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, like just media in general.
Yeah, yeah. So I can kind of relate to that too. I've always been a big fan of animation, cartoons, and stuff like that. Some of the earliest things I used to watch was like He-Man and Heathcliff and Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, and those guys. And then around the late '90s, I saw my first Japanese animation. It was Ghost in the Shell, and it completely changed my opinion of what animation can be.
Right.
It's animated art, but it's a little bit more adult and a little bit more refined than what you would normally find in American animation.
Right.
And we still say cartoons, you know, but the Japanese take theirs a little bit more serious, and they call their material animated movies and not just
Right,
cartoons.
that's why I like calling it Japanese animation more so than a Japanese cartoon, because cartoons are really targeted, like the majority of cartoons are targeted towards like younger audience,
Yeah.
but with anime, they just take that style and then like you said, they make it more into like a teen adult audience. And there is anime that's meant for like kids.
Oh, definitely.
But it just makes like, it basically shows you that anybody can enjoy animation and it doesn't just have to be for kids, because people associate animation with like, oh, my daughter watches this animation, like this cartoon or this and that, but anybody can enjoy. And literally animation is just moving art. So in a sense, you're appreciating art while watching it.
Exactly.
So that's what I love doing that.
I don't know, trying to find art in different mediums like that is just always been a passion of mine. Like you say, animation, video games is another big hobby that I have too, because it's literally interactive art.
Right, and that's another thing that I grew up was video games, because my dad owned Nintendo, Genesis, so I was blessed enough to be able to like have that experience of playing like old games. Metal Slug, me and my dad used to go at it with Metal Slug, to the point where I could always say Metal Slugs ruin relationships, because it's funny. And then even with like the games now, like Street Fighters, me and my brother would go at it, Mortal Kombat, even there's this one game where it's like tiles on the floor, and it's like bombs under it, and you have to run across it and try to figure out which path. I don't remember, but I used to play with my my godfather all the time. I don't remember the name, but it's stuff like that. And then what I like to do, like I go on certain websites, like the developer's website, and I like to look at the concept art, because the characters go through such like different stages when it comes to it. Like they'll look completely different in the beginning stage, and then you'll see the final product that they were able to come up with. So I like looking at the concept art, because it just shows you people change their minds when it comes to art. Like maybe they want the jacket to be purple instead of blue, or like blue instead of purple. So I like to always look at the concept art and see like the designer's like mindset when they're creating a character, because maybe like the character has all bright clothing, but then it doesn't match their backstory, so they'll change it. So that's one thing I also like dealing, especially with like gaming, is looking at the concept art, and even like with movies, because they do that as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So looking at the concept art and seeing how far they take a character, it's like it also helps me in general, because it also helps me like figure out what part of like designing I need to tweak, like how a character's backstory can determine on like how they look. Like they might have scars from war, or they might like to dress a certain way. It's amazing.
Yeah, so being able to see the creative process actually like flowing from the beginning to the final character.
Right.
I recently played The Last of Us Part 2. And if you unlock enough achievements in there, you can open up folders of the creative art. And like I said, it is a dramatic difference from how a character starts and to how it actually is finished to the product that they give to the public. So that's always enjoyable. So you said you want to continue your education and go to college and pursue a career in art. What do you envision that type of career for yourself?
Mainly just sharing the love, because a lot of people, I always say anybody can draw, anybody can do art, whether it's music, drawing, dance, anybody can do it. It's just the time and effort that you put to it. But unfortunately, some people doesn't really have the time and the effort to create the art that they want. So for me to have the ability to create something that you envision in your mind and bring it to life and then be able to give that vision to you, it's all in itself. It's just like a great experience because you're making somebody else happy by creating something that they failed to create themselves.
Nice.
So with that in mind, I want to create a business in where whether you want a portrait of you and your husband for your wedding, but you want not just like taking a picture and then me just literally recreating it to like the leaves in the background. Like say if you want like a fantasy background instead, whatever you want me to create, I'll create for you, and then you be able to share that love with everybody else. So that's what something I want to do in the future.
Would you ever imagine yourself in a teaching position? It just, to me, it seems like such a young woman, but you have this wealth of experience already and this very detailed understanding of art and the artistic process. Would you consider teaching and sharing that passion as well?
I consider teaching because if it's like any way to spread that love, then I'll definitely, because unfortunately, a lot of like, when it comes to art, I don't really see people my age experience art like it's dying out in my generation. So to be able to teach, because I have a sister who's 8, so to be able to teach her the ways of art and then have her teach the next generation and then so on and so forth to the point where even though it's like tweaked a little bit to where it's like modernized in the sense, like with digital art now, and maybe there's going to be another way in the future that art is created, it's still that sense where, oh, art is still here, it's not dying out. So to be able to teach people that, I would highly consider it.
So you've actually bridged the gap between traditional art and the new format of digital art.
Yes.
Do you prefer one over the other, or?
I actually prefer both, and I like switching between digital and traditional, so I don't handicap myself.
Yeah.
Because that's the one thing my father used to tell me is like if you put all your eggs in the basket, it's gonna stay in that basket, and you're not gonna be able to switch it. So I switch between digital and traditional, and I have love for it just as much as I love the other. So I don't really have a preference, though I would say the most convenient one is digital because you can go on your phone, your tablet, Apple Pencils.
There's no eraser dust.
There's no eraser. Like I had some times where I was doing like a traditional piece and I would like to zoom in, you have to pinch your fingers like that. I would do it on the paper. I'm like, wait a minute.
I can't do that here.
Wait a minute. And I'll accidentally smudge the paper. I was like, oh, okay, now I gotta actually erase it. I prefer both of them as much as I do the other. As like, just like I said, digital is more convenient.
Yeah. I know the first time I tried drawing on an iPad, and I erased a mark that I made, and then I flung my hand across the page like there was
Like the eraser
dust. And I was
shavings?
like, oh, I don't have to do that with this thing. Seeing the rise of digital art, and once again, you being a young woman now, where do you see this thing going? We have Zuckerberg has changed the name of his company to Meta, and there's a really big thing now with the metaverse and augmented reality, VR, virtual reality.
Right.
So where do you see art transitioning in the future?
And my personal opinion, you already see it. Like, for example, with that you mentioned VR, there's ways that you can make 3D paintings in VR.
Oh, yeah.
So I actually wanted a VR set just to do that because you can actually walk around in that drawing that you created. So you already see it happening, but more so in the future, we can't really tell, but I already know it's going to be such a major thing because a lot of people is taking the old-fashioned way and then just modernizing it into a completely different level. So we already see it with the digital art, even with like 3D printing. Like that came out of nowhere. I didn't even know where that came from. So you can create something that's in a 2D space and then create it in 3D. So I find that really cool, and I feel like the future of art is just gonna skyrocket at this point because everybody is, and it might be a handicap for some, but everybody is relying on digital things now. So whether it's like the Apple Pay for your phone, for like the digital wallet, like you don't need to carry your credit card anymore, or like certain things like that.
Yeah. So you brought some art here today. that I really want to talk about some of this. So this piece here, does it have a title?
The main thing about me is that I don't name my pieces, the pieces name itself.
Nice.
Because I don't like to I mean, art of course takes time and effort, but to put some time into naming something that you created, it's basically just making you like, okay, now I gotta think even more about a piece that I just spent like 24 hours doing. So I don't like naming my pieces. I rather have people interpret the meaning of the pieces and then figure out a name for themselves. So one person can name it this, another person can name it that, and I'm just fine with it because I love seeing like other people's like interpretations of pieces because everybody looks at art differently.
Nice. I like that. The first thing I really notice about this piece is the detail you put into the fabric, the lines, the boxes, the triangles.
Yes.
Like that really pops and stands out. Your color composition is awesome too. The yellow, the purple, and the blue. And once again, I can see the Japanese influence with the cherry blossoms and the traditional hat that she's wearing. And she has a red eye. Is there any significance in that?
Whenever I do like quote unquote like realistic pieces or like do like human figures, I like it to where you can tell it's a human, but then I like changing it for some reason. So they'll have a regular eye, but then part of their skin will be a different color. Or like they'll have a regular eye, but then like something about them is quote unquote unnatural. And you'll see that a lot in my art. So it's not necessarily anything significant about it. It's more so just my personal preference and like doing that.
Yeah.
So.
Trying to embellish the character a little bit. This is a really, it's clean. Your lines are so clean and crisp.
Thank you.
The colors are really bold. And that eye, it really captures you too. I really like this piece.
Thank you.
Before we leave, I'm gonna have to come up with a name for it myself. So let's check out some more stuff you brought. Okay, so this piece right here is 4 different portraits combined into one.
It's actually a part of one of my school projects that we had, and it's basically reconstructing. So taking different forms of different medias and then putting them all together.
Okay.
So I just had this one paint canvas lying around, and I was like, all right, so I have to do the school project anyways, I might as well. So instead of taking the canvas and painting something on it, just take a different media, which is paper, and then put it on the canvas. So I think between the canvas, the paper, I used markers, and I actually used a chalk marker for like the white instead of like an actual gel pen, and then the pencils. So I think that's 5 different things in total.
Oh, wow.
So my teacher was like, all right, I don't want this to be normal. Make it completely abnormal as you can. Don't color in it. Don't color it. Make it pencil. Add marker in there. Make it cartoonish. Make it realistic. Add it in the canvas. So like just reconstructing something and just making something a purpose that is different from its original purpose.
That's an interesting project.
It really is. That's why I love my art classes, because they make us do, especially now that I'm a senior, because I took art classes the majority of my high school, my high school years. So as I got into higher grades, they gave us more interesting projects to do, and this was one of my favorite ones. And then there's the abstract painting that we have to do, and I think that's due next week, so I should probably start doing that. But I love doing different projects, and then they also want you to be you.
Yeah.
Like not to copy other people, not to try to meet the status quo, just do you. And then the more different you are, then they'll realize the more you took time and effort to try to like make it as different as you can. So
with this piece, I have to say your rendering of the faces is absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
It is amazing. Your hand is so good. Just the eyes, the hair, like you say, the hatching, the cross hatching.
Yeah,
your
that's my
father
one
showed
favorite
you.
thing to do is cross hatching, and you'll probably see that a lot in my
Yeah.
art.
Well, you're really good at it.
Thank you.
And personally, being a portrait artist, I know that portraiture is difficult.
It is.
It's not easy to capture the likeness of a person, but your ability here is very strong. It's really blowing me away, actually.
Thank you. It was actually hard for me in the start. I actually used the grid method when I started doing
Yeah.
portraits. So I would take a ruler and I will match it with the reference that I'm using. So I would print it out, and then I would use the gray filter, and then I would use the grid, and then I would match the grid on it, and then I would try my best to like go over it. But I did it so many times to where I start with simple shapes. So like wherever I know where the eyes are at, I'll start with like a sideways oval, and then like a circle for the nose. So I started doing that, and then I just got better and better and better. So.
Yeah. The grid method is the same way I started. Like you say, just draw one square at a time, and then once you get the hang of it, you can freehand a lot of stuff. You also brought some examples of your digital art. So
Yes.
what do we have here?
So that one is one of my original characters, or OCs, I like calling them because it's easier for me. But the main thing I want to say is that vitiligo is my most favorite quote-unquote skin imperfection,
Yeah,
because it's literally art on your skin. And you see a lot of people, not a lot of people, it's considered rare, but when you see people with vitiligo, you realize that every single last patch on their skin is different from somebody else's. So whether you have a big patch on your face or some in your arm or some in your leg, I love it because it's so different for every single individual who has it. So between freckles and vitiligo, or vitiligo, however you want to pronounce it, it's my favorite, and I love drawing it so much because I get to like randomly just basically make blobs on the skin.
Yeah. And this piece here.
This is actually one of my favorite pieces, and a lot of people like this one for some reason. Digitally wise, this is my favorite because it brings media together. And like I said before, you get you get inspiration from so many places. And this is actually from a game I played. Like I
Okay.
mentioned, I love video games. So I just sat down. I was like, you know what? I want to draw this character. And then I did it. But the reason why this is my favorite is because the coloring. So it's hard, especially in digital, to make something look black without actually using black. So
Yes.
because when you want to actually use black to outline, you can't really do that because it just washes away the other features. So it kind of forced me, so like using a super dark purple, but then highlighting it a certain way to make it look black. So that's why I love this one so much, because I was able to, like, after like 10 million tries, I was able to do it, so.
Oh, it came out really good.
Thank
And
you.
I do like the video game, the up, down, left, right.
Yeah, because it's a rhythm game, so.
Yeah, yeah. It looks like some New York graffiti that you would see on the
Yes.
train or side of a building or
That's
something.
actually what I got like from this part, because it's the graffiti. Like I said, both of my parents are from New York, so
Yeah, yeah.
whenever we go out and visit, I remember the first time my aunt took me to ride the train, that's all you would see is graffiti. So that's also another thing, is like whenever I like doing writing, I usually write it like with the drips down it. Like some of my art pieces, you see it like it was like digitally like a glass shatter.
Yeah, yeah.
Some like that, some drip like that. Like I like making writing different in a way to where, yeah, it's writing, but then it looks like it has something to it.
Yeah. Well, your work is phenomenal.
Thank you.
You are a beautiful person.
Thank
And I can't wait to see more art from you in the future.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you coming to have a conversation with me today.
Of course, I'm so glad to be here.
This has been an episode of Roundtable Discussions. I've been your host, Travis Prince, and today our guest was Nala Messiah. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.